What's up, gamers? Sweet Johnny Cage here. Tonight, I'm going to be giving you my final thoughts on Metal Gear Solid 4 Guns of the Patriots for the PlayStation 3. I know a lot of you guys are probably expecting, after our press interviews, that I was going to do a review of the game, but everybody knows that this game is either a 10 or 100. It deserves a perfect score. I'm not even going to argue with that fact. What I do want to do, however, is just kind of give my take on the game and what I took from it. I just completed it this morning with a time of 16 hours and 2 minutes. A couple hours faster than some of my friends. I didn't speed the game. I didn't do any speed running type scenarios. I really just played it and watched every single cutscene. I just want to start off by saying that I am astounded at what this series has turned into. The first Metal Gear game I had played was back in 1998 on the PlayStation 1 with Metal Gear Solid. I didn't own an NES, so I wasn't able to play the port of Metal Gear, and thank God I wasn't able to play Snake's Revenge, and I didn't even play Solid Snake for the MSX2. So coming from the beginning of Metal Gear Solid, I pretty much knew that this game was going to be perfect. I thought that the first one was perfect, I thought that the second one was even better, although it was kind of confusing with the story. Sadly, I did not play Snake Eater or Subsistence, mainly because I got kind of tired of cutting through the jungle and not really having too much fun, although a friend of mine had told me that just after the part where I stopped playing, it gets good. So I'm definitely going to play that through again with the expectation of it turning into a regular Metal Gear. Metal Gear Solid was hands down one of my favorite games on the PlayStation, aside from maybe Final Fantasy VII. I had known that a sequel was going to come out when the credits had stopped rolling at the end of Metal Gear Solid, when Revolver Ocelot, kind of reveals a bit of a plot twist and pretty much leaves the whole thing open for a sequel by revealing that the person who is basically the brains of the Shadow Moses operation was really the President of the United States. Also, if you beat the game by saving Meryl, it's revealed that there is another Snake, that there's a third clone. There are a ton of things I like about 4. I'm going to start off with the obvious, the graphics. This game really brought the PlayStation 3 to its full potential, at least from what I can tell. I have never seen a game on another platform, aside from an incredibly powerful PC, that has been able to display that high of resolution, that high of detail in graphics of a game. I mean, there have been times where my parents would walk into the room and be like, "Is that a game?" And, I was even astounded by it. I was incredibly taken aback in the very beginning of the game, when it first starts off. When you first gain control of Snake, it goes from a cutscene to gameplay in a matter like that. And you don't even notice. Just the HUD pops up and that's it. I was amazed. And, the rest of the game was just like that. Second, the most important part of Metal Gear has been the story, and I really have to hand it to Kojima by saying that every single question I've ever had about the Patriots, the system, the AI, GW, what the hell happened at the end of 2, what happened to Jack, what happened to Snake, what happened to Rose, what happened to Olga's baby, everything was answered in this game. Although it did end on a note of who really was the bad guy. Was it Big Boss? Was it Zero? Was it Solid Snake? Was it Liquid? Was it Ocelot? You don't really know, and I guess that kind of leaves it open for a Metal Gear Solid 5, although I highly doubt there will be a Metal Gear Solid 5. It has been said by Kojima that this was Solid Snake's last mission. But getting back to my point, I was extremely impressed by the amount of questions that were answered in this game. Hands down, my favorite part of this game was going back to Shadow Moses. A friend of mine had kind of actually spoiled it for me by saying that you go back to where the story actually began. I had actually assumed that you go back to Outer Heaven, but, when he said, "Oh no, Shadow Moses," I was amazed. I was pretty much astounded at where this game was going to go. I think I was in Eastern Europe at the time when he had told me, and I just kept playing and playing and playing until I actually got the Shadow Moses. Now, when you actually land on Shadow Moses, Otacon just kind of drops you off in a random snowfield. So I'd assumed, maybe he's going to go around the back to where Rex was, where you left him. But when you walk through that hole in the mountains and you're standing directly to the left of the elevator that brought you to Shadow Moses Island, where the whole story and the whole plot twisting began, a tear almost came to my eye. I did smile, but I was really just kind of taken back to 1998 when I was just a kid playing, just a game that everybody thought was just a game. Sure, it was a great game, but nobody had expected it to blow up into what it has become. An incredible effect that Kojima put into Shadow Moses was the amount of flashbacks that Snake has. You know, there is the dream that Snake has as basically just an emulation of Metal Gear Solid 1 with one guard missing, but when you actually get to Shadow Moses and he starts having flashbacks in the ventilation shaft, in the nuclear warhead storage facility, in Otacon's office, I was just amazed. You know, like, I stood there and listened to all of Snake's flashbacks, even though you could easily skip them. I listened to every single one of them. I was also really impressed at how restored everything was. Not even restored, but just kept. How kept everything was in that facility. When you go downstairs to Otacon's office, the breaker that you had to destroy to disable the electrified floor was still broken. Like, it was just in shambles. Yeah, a lot of stuff was frozen over and kind of destroyed from weathering, but it was just amazing. And the dented wall that when Frank Yeager threw a guard into it and it shattered, not shattered, but dented the wall severely, and the blood was still all over the walls, I was just amazed at the amount of detail that went into the new Shadow Moses. I was also really happy that the Howling Wolf boss fight took place in the same place that the final showdown with Sniper Wolf took place in. And I was expecting Otacon to actually have, you know, kind of a, not a bitter reaction towards Snake, but just as much of a flashback that Snake had in that battlefield, and sure enough, he did. Wrapping up Shadow Moses is the Battle of the Metal Gears. You use Metal Gear Rex to escape from Shadow Moses Island, which was awesome. Like, I was totally thrilled. Even though it's very easy, you're just kind of walking, you never have to shoot, you could just keep swatting away at the gecko. It wasn't that hard, but it was just still great. And although the fight with Rex against Ray, you know, Solid against Liquid Snake again, it was pretty much automated. You really just had to take him down or shoot him a lot and take him down, press triangle, and then the scene would happen. It was still an amazing, amazing piece of that game. And it kind of brought Otacon's dream true of pretty much creating like a mobile mech warrior. The final fight of the game takes place at the very top of Outer Haven, pretty much the top of the ship, and it's basically like, if you get punched off the top, you're going to die anyway. So it's basically just a fight to the finish between Solid and Liquid again. However, the way the fight goes down, I was just as impressed with the rest of the game as I was this fight. Because, you know, as soon as the cutscene ends and those life bars fill to the same colors that they were in Metal Gear Solid 1 and 2, I actually clapped and then picked up my controller again. I was that impressed with it. And how it keeps changing from game to game to game, from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 with all the different life gauges and all the different music. It was really just kind of like fighting through the credits and just pretty much fighting to the very end of the game. The ending to Metal Gear Solid 4 was very impressive. Bringing back Big Boss, I was, again, impressed. Like, I really can't think of another word aside from astounded and impressed to really express my feelings about this game. Seeing Big Boss with this level of detail, I mean, you haven't really seen Big Boss. I'm not really going to count Snake Eater. I'm going to count Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake. You really haven't seen the guy with the eye patch, you know, the older guy with the eye patch, since Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake back in 1990. And, you know, like, Americans really didn't get to see that because the game was really only released in Japan. But still, it was incredible. Like, I could not believe seeing the guy standing there. And although he does die, like, 15 minutes later, it was just incredible to see him and to have him explain that everybody started with zero, but everybody started breaking away because they were all trying to push for Boss's will to create the Outer Haven for soldiers and basically make a world with no system and really no government to tie anybody together, just for everybody to live as one, you know, as peace. And, you know, it really kind of leaves you with the question, who was the bad guy of the Metal Gear series? Was it Big Boss? Was it Ocelot? Was it Zero? Was it Solid Snake? Was it Liquid? Who was it? That's the only question this game leaves you with. And I think that that's the right question, because that helps us question pretty much the world as this game has since the start. I hope you've enjoyed this game as much as I have. I know everybody's going to be playing it a bunch more times just to let the story soak into their brains and really understand what this series has been about. Guys, if you haven't picked up Metal Gear Solid 4 Guns of the Patriots to the PlayStation 3 yet, I really suggest that you get your hands on it. I don't think it's going to become, you know, really unavailable for a very long time, but you need to experience this game. And if you haven't played any other Metal Gear games, we do have them all available for you at VideoGameCentral.com. If you look to the right of this video, inside of the video description, you'll find a link to VideoGameCentral.com. Inside of the description, you'll also find a link to the Gamer's Voice blog and podcast. You could also subscribe to the podcast via iTunes. We do push that out bi-weekly. And we are actually going to be going live very soon with it. Maybe starting in the next podcast or two. So please stay tuned to that. Alright? Guys, it's been an honor and a pleasure playing this game with you. If you can catch me on PS3 Online, Sweet Johnny Cage, I'll probably be playing Metal Gear Online, considering MGS4 is the only game I own for the PlayStation 3 right now, until probably Final Fantasy 13. Guys, thanks for watching. I'm Sweet Johnny Cage. I'll catch you next time.